Hello developers, let's start developing. Today is the day 2 of the 2023 Advent of Code and we have ourselves a cube conundrum. To be honest, this task, at least the first part, looks very easy. We're just shown some cubes, but in this part of the task it doesn't actually, it is not important that they're cubes. We can just call them some kind of colored balls. And we have an elf that is showing us some balls, and then we need to say whether that is possible. It seems that if this is the maximum balls, so number of balls that we should get, and if we get something like 20 red, we should discount that line. And of course, we should discount this line because it says 15 blue and we only have 14 blue. But the puzzle input is kind of weird. So we're gonna need to do some more processing. So what I will do, as always, I will take the small input and try to make something that works on that. So the problem will be reading the input, but what will be the format of our input? Basically, we have a series of sets of balls, or let's call that type ball sack. It's not generic at all, so we're just gonna say that we have red that is a number, and green that is a number, and blue that is a number. And that means that our input should basically be a series of ball sacks. So that will be an array of ball sack. This shouldn't return that, so we're reading the input lines. And we're gonna have to basically have some method that lines.map, some method that says line to ball sack. And I will add here an ID, which will also be a number, because that's important. The number of the game is an important part. Actually, no. A ball set is just that, and then we have a game. And that one has an ID that is a number, and has the balls, which are an array of ball sacks. So we should get a game array. So that means that we need to return an array of games, so line to game, which will be a method which should take a string as an input, a line as an input, and return a game. So here we will have games, and then we are returning an array of games, and everything is fine and dandy, at least as far as the processing of the input goes. Now we're left, the input of course will be a game array, and part 2 again a game array. And we'll need to do show input will also need to take a game array. And test takes a game array as well. So now the small thing of actually doing this. So if we take our input, of course we're gonna do that, and we go to the regex 101 because we might need some regexes. Now, never process things like that are repetitive and cyclical with regexes. That's a bad idea generally. But this part, and of course we can have 2-digit or even 3-digit games. That's gonna be more digits, and then we have a dot, and then we have a space, and no, let's not take the space, and then we have a lot of everything else. And we have the number as well. So here we say that we are extracting the ID and we are extracting a series of ball sacks. That's a ball sack and that's a ball sack and that's a ball sack. So a ball sack is basically that thing, but I think we can trim a space of that one to have it a bit better. Okay, as I always say, never write a regex, always paste it. The matcher will be that. And then we match on the line. Yeah, this is generally a bad idea to have two variables that are called matcher and matches, but I'll let it stand for now. The ID is basically matches of 1, and that's a number. What does it say? Matches, yeah. If matches is null, because it can be a null or it can be a match, then basically we need to I'll just say fail because this is not a thing that's supposed to happen. If this happens, most likely it means that our regex is faulty or something like that. Otherwise, the ID is plus matches of 1. 0 is the full match. The first group is on 1. And let's return a game. We need to return a game, so the ID, and then I will say balls are just an empty array, so we can just see if this part is operational. So in part 1, I will just say, yeah, that's totally okay, and console log input. Let's see if this gets any traction. So npm start 2 to run the second day. And let's see what we have. Loading code, running, ID 12345. Yeah, we're getting the ID correctly. And the rest of it. Now we have something like this. We're gonna need to split this on a semicolon. So const ball sacks. The lines of the ball sacks are the matches of 2, but split on the semicolon space string. Let's see if this gives us something. This should give us a nice set of, yeah, 3 blue, 4 red, 1 red, 2 green, 6 blue, 2 green, 1 blue, 2 green, and so on and so forth. And there's just not any order. We can never say that the green one is first on the or the red one is last, or so on and so forth. So we will need for each of these, we will need to again split them on a comma space. So we will need to say ball sacks dot for each ball sack of ball sacks. So that will loop the array, and we will need to say ball sack dot split on a comma space now. And those are the balls, and I will say console log the balls to see if we get something that we like. So we will need to get 3 blue, 4 red, 1 red, 2 green, 6 blue. Something like along those lines. Yay! This split nicely. And now we can do yet another split on a space. This is once more an array of strings, and for each of them ball of balls. Now for that ball we will need to split it. That's actual data ball dot split on a space. And then we know that this should return 2 strings. One of them will be the number and the other one will be the type. So for each ball sack we will need to have result, which will be an actual ball sack array. Have it as an empty array. We're pasting, we're element. I'm getting generic. That is the actual ball sack. That's an actually we're just gonna say that everything is 0. Red is 0 and blue is 0 and green is also 0. Let's keep with the RGB theme. So this is an OK. And now we can find that element. So actually I'm not gonna call it data. This is the count, and the second part is the kind, let's say. So now we can say element of kind is equal to plus count. So this doesn't have a chance in hell of compiling because this is any. Well, this still doesn't like. Yeah. No, we don't want that. We want to have a TS ignore here, I guess. Yes. We definitely can get some type safe code here. We might do it later, but for now, we might be okay with that. So console log element. And assuming that the element is okay, we just push it into the result. And the balls should be the result. If this works, it would be fine. If not, well, we'll see. All of that is object, object, object. Let's see if we have. So first time we're showing 3 blue, 4 red only. 3 blue, 4 red. Yep, that's correct. 1 red, 2 green, 6 blue. 1 red, 2 green, 6 blue. Only 2 green. That's correct. And see, here we have 3 showings, 3 showings, 3 showings, 3 showings, and 2 showings. Seems that we might be parsing this thing correctly. Okay. Assuming that this works, then we are somewhere around here. Now we can define yet another property that we're going to call max ballsack. That's the maximum then that we can have. This means, and that is hard coded to 12 red, 13 green, and 14 blue. And let's add a method, a function, compare ball sacks, which will give a game sack, which will be a ball sack, and a max sack, which will be another ball sack. And this thing returns a boolean. So here we will say if we can have this as silly code. If game sack of red is more than the maximum possible, return false. I generally don't like ifs without that are not nested, and Copilot is being lazy at the moment. It should have generated this, but once more, I'm not using it to do my thinking for me, I'm using it to do my grunt work, but now it refused. And once more for the blue. We can be more efficient or whatnot, otherwise return true. So, now we just need to say, well, for the input for all the games, filter them, each game, for each of the game dot balls, we need to have all of them. For each of the ball sacks, it should hold that this thing is true. Compare ball sack with max ball. So if this is true for every one of the situations when we got some, that is a valid game. Otherwise, it's not. And if we're okay, sum is a custom function that I made that usually comes in handy. What is the sum of the IDs of those games? So for every game, we need to get the game.id and sum over that. Let's see if this thing is running as it should be. It should give us the 1, 2, and 5 items, and of course the sum will be 8. Yep. 1, 2, and 5, and the sum is 8. So it seems that This part of the code is working. Let's just get rid of some console logs. Fine. I'll comment out part 2. We don't need that for now. And see if this thing gives us some kind of answer. It should be relatively straightforward. And you can see the processing time is bigger for the input because we have complicated processing than the actual processing. And it says that the sum is 2528. Let's see if that is correct. That's the right answer. We have 3 gold star. So, let's see. The elf says they're stopped producing snow because they aren't getting any water. Yeah, by the way, we successfully launched on the trebuchet, so that's a good thing. If each games you play, what is the fewest number of cubes of each color that could have been in the map? So, in this case, what is the minimum? So, the minimum is 3 for blue, 4 for red, 3 for... So, 6 for blue, 4 for red, 2 for green, and that's it. The minimum, and the minimum, no fewer than. Yeah, all different settings. The power of a set of cubes equal to a number of red cubes multiplied together. The power of the minimum set of cubes in game 1 is 48. Okay, seems totally straightforward. Let's see if we're able to do that. We're totally gonna reuse the parsing. So let's see what we can do. So it means that we need to get the minimum. What we will do, input dot map, we're gonna map it to a different structure, and we're gonna take each game and map that to a structure that has a single ball sack. So this will be an object that has an ID, which is the game.id, and an object that has a min ball sack, which will be game.balls.reduce. So we're gonna reduce, and the reducing function will be something that takes an accumulator and a ball sack and does what? It does something, and the initial value will be a empty ball sack. Actually, that might be a useful thing. And since we don't want to mutate it, it's something that has no parameters and returns a ball sack. So with red 0 and green 0 and blue 0. So here we will have that this is equal to get empty. And then we don't need this because of course it's a ball sack. So here we're gonna start with the empty ball sack. And in each run of the thing, we're gonna just say if accumulator dot blue is less than the ball sack dot, once more we're starting with red, Then the accumulator.ret is equal to bs.ret. And the exact same logic for all of them. So this is green, 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 guys of home, blue, 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 and after all is said and done, just return the accumulator. So as we're starting with 0, it will just take the first ones and the second ones and so on and so forth. And these are the minimums, and this should be an array of this kind of method of object that has an ID and a minimum ball sack. And now we can just map it again to a power of a set of cubes. The minimums we're just mapping. Of course, we could have mapped the mapping, but this way I have better control. For each minimum, basically, we need to return the min dot ballsack. Actually, this means that we might want to do a destructuring here. This has an ID and ballsack. And this needs to be in this kind of parenthesis. And it's not called ballsack, it's called min ballsack. Actually, we don't need the ID, and we can map this to a BS. What we're gonna do, we just need to return bs.red times bs green times bs blue. And we have the powers. If we have the powers, we just need to sum them up. And just to be safe, console.log powers. We're switching back to the small input that has known values, and let's see if this not so simple mapping, it's still a map with a reduce inside of it, actually works. It says 48, 12, 48, 12, 15, 6, 1560, 630, 36 respectively. The sum is 2286. I don't know, but this looks okay. So we don't need this. We just need the huge input with 100 games. And let's see what happens now. We have some milliseconds for processing of the input, but processing of the parts is basically nil, just a single millisecond. Let's see if this is maybe the correct answer. Sure it is. We have 4 gold stars now. You can see my advent calendar so far is perfect. We got launched, we were on a cloud, and we'll see where we're going tomorrow. So bye for now and keep developing.